Namaskar, my name is Manish Kumar and I welcome all of you to my channel. So in today's video, we are going to talk about PayPay interview question that was asked to me during the interview, and I had almost 5.5 years of experience when I was getting interviewed for this role, and the position they were offering me senior data engineering role. So without delay, let's jump to the laptop screen and discuss all the questions that was asked to me. All right. So here the topic for today is PayPay interview question, and this is for data engineering role, senior data engineer role, and I had experience senior DE role, and I had experience at that time for 5.5 years. Now I have 5.7 or 8 years. That's it. So basically 2-3 months back I was getting interviewed. So the first question that was asked to me was, or in general, this is a question that everyone asks, is briefly introduce yourself. So basically they will give the introduction and they will ask you to introduce yourself. And here I have seen people making again and again mistakes about talking about their project in detail while explaining or while giving the introduction of themselves, right? So this is where I have seen like many people making mistake, and I have given you a small template which you can utilize, and your intro should not be more than a minute. So basically I consider generally 45 seconds to 1 minute, where I talk about where I am, like my name, where I am currently located, then total number of years of experience, then where I am currently working and what was the last organization, and then primarily tech stack, and then some of the extra details that I feel that should impact the that should give me the impact on my profile. So that is what I add here, and at last I am talking about when did I get passed out from college. The next question was asked to me was, what all optimization technique you have used in Spark. So here I have given some solutions, like we were using broadcasting, partitioning, bucketing, and also I have utilized multi-threading, but that was in Python. So Python or any programming language, there I was utilizing multi-threading. So I have added here, but I said like it is not related to Spark, but yes, we have utilized multi-threading. Then caching, coalescing, and Parquet file format is also one of the design consideration while building ETL pipeline. So this is what I was talking about, a little bit of Parquet as a file format, why we are choosing this. And then memory optimization based on the execution plan. So basically how much memory I am going to allocate for my job or my application to run or ETL pipeline to run. So that was the discussion going on here during the optimization. So based on that, he asked me like how do you decide number of cores, memory, and executor memory, driver memory, and cores. These are the things they were asking. So that is, so here if you see what I have written, no hard and fast rule, it depends on data. So basically I haven't come across any formula or anything as such which can be utilized to calculate exact number of driver or exact number of executor with exact number of core. So it totally depends on data as far as I know, and no one can tell you upfront these details. But I have seen people are giving some of the solutions on LinkedIn, and that is really I can say worst solution that is provided there out there on the internet, and I'll tell you how. So I was seeing like multiple people are copying and pasting the same content, so I'm just giving you the heads up to stay away from those people and content. Okay, so let's say example, I have to process 100 GB. This is the worst solution. I'm not going to talk about the best solution here because there is no hard and fast rule, but yes, of course I will, in some of the video I'll talk about how do we decide actually, how do we start, what are the mindset we have during taking the decision of processing the data set. Like there should be some starting point. So those things I'll talk in a separate video, but here I'm telling you the worst solution that they provide, and why that is worst solution, that will also be shown here. So 100 GB is basically 100 into per GB has 8 partition if 128 MB block size is there. If you can understand those things, then yeah, that will help you. 800 partition. So basically what solution says, okay, we have 800 partition, so we need 800 tasks to perform this one, right? And that is where, let's say I am taking 4 core per executor, right? 4 core per executor. That means I will need 200 executor. Then only 200 into 4 will be 800. So 800 parallel tasks can run. So basically they are suggesting we will take 4 core with 200 executors, or vice versa. I think 4 core, not this way. So basically 800 tasks they have to perform. Okay. And now here the next thing, next thing they will talk about, okay, 800 task is there, 800 parallel execution has to be done, 800 core should be required, right? 800 core is required according to their solution. And to get 800 core, what they'll say, okay, now I'll calculate about the RAM. How much RAM should I give, or how much memory should I give to the executor, each executor? So that is where they will say, okay, 128 MB block size is there. So to calculate 128 MB, they multiply by 4 and they said 512 MB of RAM will be required to process one partition, right? So if I am taking 4 cores, so basically 512 into 4 core is basically 1 core calculate 512 GB. So according to them it will be basically 2 GB RAM. So according to them they will say I'll give 2 GB RAM to each executor. So if you are giving 2 GB RAM to each executor, and you have to calculate I don't remember exactly what was the other thing, but yeah, if I take 2 GB and 2 GB RAM per executor, right, per executor, and if I have to calculate 100 GB, I don't know where this 4 times comes from, but yeah, I have seen that solution. So they say I would need 200 executor to process 100 GB of data. So I think they say 100 GB into 4 again, 4 times to process. So it basically 200 executor will be required. So if you take 200 executor, right, and each executor is having 2 GB RAM and 4 core CPU, right? So 200 into 4, 800. Yeah, that is how this will come. So if you think this one, you will be in big trouble, because you are not going to get as much CPU core as the RAM. Like so I'll give you one example. When I was we were having a cluster in Jio for 128 GB RAM, okay, and 16 core CPU, I think, as far as I remember, but yeah, I think it will be 16 or 32. So if I take 16 core CPU, I would need 50 machines of this one to reach 800 core, right? Then only I'll reach 800. So basically if you see the calculation here, I would need 50 machine. If I use 50 machine with these configurations, I will have 128 GB into 50 machines also. So this will become 6.4 terabyte, and this will become 800 core CPU. So do you think this is the best solution it can exist in this world? Because if you have 6.4 terabyte of cluster, then only you are going to get 800 core CPU, and you are utilizing the entire core of CPU for just processing 100 GB of data. So this is the worst solution that I have seen, and why I am saying this again and again, because I have seen people saying, yeah, great explanation, thanks for sharing and whatnot. I don't remember anything, but yeah. So if you see, if you answer this one, you are going to get rejected upfront. These kind of answers are sometime I have seen ChatGPT is also providing, which is not correct. Just like ChatGPT just calculated by some number and then give you some random number, but this is not how it works in real industry. Okay, so don't answer this one at least, and I'll move to the next one because I have taken a lot of time to explain that question. I'll move ahead. And here the next question was implement Apache Hudi file format feature like Upsert. So I was asked to write a code, right, to get Apache Hudi file format features like Upsert. So basically Upsert is not supported in data lake. Yeah, ACID property was or is not supported in the data lakes, though that is where these all file formats are coming, iceberg, hoodie, delta, right? So it was asked to build upsert. Upsert is basically update plus insert. Okay, so if I am getting a new record, I have to first find out is it a update or is it a insert, and those kind of features I had to implement here. There was some boilerplate that was given to me, but it was very small, like the class name and function definition was there, like initializer was there, and I think REPR was there. Yeah, I don't think I wrote this one, at least. Yeah, so these three boilerplate was there, and I had to write the entire code. Actually, I'll have to move to left side. Yeah, so this is the code that I wrote. We had a lot of discussion, and it took almost 50 minutes of entire discussion to solve this one. Basically, this was the, I think they asked me just 3 or 4 questions, this one and this one, and entire time was given to this particular coding question, and that is where I was doing coding. I was deciding some of the things like what all logic should be there, how I am going to identify which record is which object here will be, which object or which record is insert and which one is update. I wrote all of the code here. Some of the discussions are also there, logic for delete, something I was just discussing, and this is the code I wrote. I think this will be working code, this piece will be working code, and what collection or what kind of data structure I will use. Initially I use set, then I come to know, oh, set will not work here, so I move to dictionary. So those kind of discussions were being done here, and of course interviewer was also helping me out if I was getting stuck. Now after completing the first round, I got selected and I went into second round. And in second round, so here I'll give you some brief about my profile, because all of the questions that you are going to see after this one, you will see a lot of questions are related to Airflow and microservices. This is due to I have done this kind of project where I was utilizing Airflow, and I had built also a microservice to create a DAG. So that is where this kind of questions are coming. So you may not get the same kind of question because you might not have worked on Airflow. If you have worked on Airflow, then there is a slight chance that you are going to get the same question. So I'll explain this one. Okay, now we have some context. So what is your input file for creating DAG in Airflow? So if you know Airflow, you know that there is a DAG that has to be created. So what I had done, or our microservices has done, that if you are a user and you don't know how to write DAG, you don't need to know how to write a DAG. You just give us the script path, where is your script sitting, and you give us the details of time, then do you want to catch up or do you want to backfill. So those kind of details, some 6 to 7 good number of configurations that you have to pass, and you don't need to pass it. Basically we had a Swagger URL, there you can just give us a payload and we will create you a DAG. I will schedule your call and you can directly go to the Airflow UI, okay, Airflow UI, and see your DAGs in action, right? So this was implemented, and that is where they were asking what was the input file. So we didn't had any input file, we had a payload, and that payload was JSON. Okay, so this was the question they asked me. And then the next question, how do you make dependency on DAG and task in Airflow? So here there is 2 questions. First, how will you make dependency between task 1 to task 2 in same DAG, right? This was the same DAG. And the another question was, how will you make the dependency between the DAGs, like DAG 1 and DAG 2? So DAG 2 should run only after the successful run of DAG 1. So these kind of questions were asked. So if you know Airflow, you can answer, or if you don't know this answer, then you should explore about Airflow. Then they asked me about the use of scheduler in Airflow. So I think I was discussing something about scheduler here also, and that is where he asked me to explain about a scheduler. So in scheduler, if you see, this is the architecture that I have taken from the Airflow official website, right? This is the architecture that Airflow works on, where we have a worker, scheduler, web server, right? Yeah, and then executor is also there. And I think 1-2 details like queue and all those details are not here. So I was explaining about just a scheduler here, and then he jumped to, okay, explain me the entire end-to-end flow of airflow architecture. So that is where I started talking about queue and how our queue, like how our job gets into queue and then how worker starts the job, right, schedules that job. So those kind of things were being discussed here. And if you want to know more, you can either go to the documentation of airflow, or you can go to the course by Mark, I think Mark Limberty something, right, or else I don't know. On YouTube also there is a Coder 2J YouTube channel, right? So you can go there also. You will learn some of the concepts of airflow. Now the next question was, how will you achieve parallelism in airflow task? How will you take user input to do so? So here this question was related to again microservices, where we had a discussion like from user we take some of the inputs. Now they were asking me, okay, if you want to achieve parallelism in airflow task, how will you take input from the user? So that is where I was talking about nested JSON, that I will use nested JSON to take the input from the user. But of course user will not have something or they are not going to create you nested JSON. So that is where I said I will create, like I will ask a UI team to create one UI on top of this, and there should be a plus button, and plus button, if someone clicks on plus button, this will start getting nested inside one another. And that is how we can get the input payload from the user and then create a DAG. Or else the second option is going to be that if you have a complex DAG which cannot be done through our predefined templates, so you can directly give us a DAG and we will schedule it for you, right? So this was also an option. So these were the two discussions that happened. And then the next question again in this round also was Spark optimization technique and what all things I have used. So this is the same question that I discussed before, right? And the next question was how Spark will run this query. So this is where I like lose some points, because if you see here, he gave me just simple query that this is the query, select star from table 1, and you have to talk about how Spark will run this query. So if you see, I have written, I directly assume some driver and a memory, like driver and RAM and course, without asking for a table size. And that is where interviewer was like, okay, where is this number coming from? Why did you not ask from me, right? So he didn't say it clearly, but yeah, he at last he was saying like you should ask more question. So that's why I have written, so always clarify, don't assume anything. I always say, but I assume somehow. So yeah, that happens sometime. So here he was expecting like memory, like how memory is going to be allocated, then analysis phase, right? There are 4 phases. So what we say, I don't remember. Okay, so those 4 phases are there in Spark, where analysis happens, then cost optimizations like logical plans are built, then physical plans are built, and then at last everything gets converted on RDD and then it runs on the memory side or executor side, right? So those kind of details were asked, and then how driver will get spawned, how executor will get spawned, when this will get spawned. So those all entire details were there, and also how many tasks will get created, how many job will get created. So those kind of questions he was expecting. Since I don't talk about number of jobs, so he explicitly asked me how many jobs and tasks and stages will be getting created here. So I have talked about this in great detail in one of my video in Spark Fundamental, right, playlist. If you know Hindi, then only you will be able to understand, because recently I have started this channel in English. So this one is in Hindi. If you understand, then only otherwise you will have to go to some other playlist or some other YouTube videos or maybe some blog posts to understand how this jobs, stages and tasks works in Spark. Then the next question was, what will happen if my stage fails, and then how are we going to process, how reprocessing will happen, sorry. So here you might have seen, if you work on Spark, you have seen multiple level of errors like task level error. So you might be seeing that, okay, it was retried for 4 times and then could not succeed. So this is a task level error. Then he was asking about specifically in a stage level error. So in stage level error, if you see, reprocessing happen of the same stage through lineage, right? So it has a lineage, and if something fails in at a stage level, so it will use the lineage and it will recalculate. But it can happen that your entire job is failing due to some reason, and that is where you'll have to run the rerun the entire process. So there is no stage details or anything stored at checkpoint level, right? Checkpointing will also work when your stage fails, but if your job fails, then you have to run entire thing again. And if your node is down, sometime also this kind of errors we get, node is down, then what it does, it will spawn a different executor on your behalf, basically for that particular executor. So let's say executor 3, right? Executor 3 was running on node number 1. So let's say this machine fail now. So entire whatever the lineage it had, it will send it to a different machine. Depends, like if we have a storage or if we have a memory available there, then only, otherwise it will wait for something to complete, and then it will get reallocated the same task, same stages, everything to be happen on some different executors. So these are the errors that we generally get, and I talked about all, but they were asking about just one, just from the stage side. The next question is, what will happen if I do this one, right? He gave me select star from table 1, but now he is saying I am adding limit 1 also here. So now just by adding limit 1, what will happen internally? So he is asking about a Spark SQL query engine and all those details. So that is where, if you know, in one of the video I think I had talked about show method. So show method returns one complete partition, okay? Even if it shows you number of 20 rows or 30 rows or 50 rows, whatever you have passed, but it returns one partition, complete partition, not just 20 records. But when you use limit, so it scans the one, it will scan any partition, right? And if it get one record, that is fine. After that, it is not going to scan also. So here scanning will stop after one record is processed, like one record is fetched, and now it will show you. So here you are not going to get complete partition, you are just going to get one record. Also, let's say you are having Spark and you are having DB, and your table is in DB, right? So if the table 1 is in this DB, so directly Spark will make a connection, and this will push the limit 1 to the database level, and database itself will return you one record, and then Spark will show you. So this is how things works internally when you just add limit 1 here. Now I completed the second round, then move to the third round. So basically first round is elimination round, and if you complete the first round, then the next round will happen, like all the remaining round will happen, and cumulatively you will get the result. So here in this round 3, first question was I had to explain the project in detail, and of course all the questions like introduction is getting asked in all the interview, but I am not repeating the same question, okay? So here explain the project in details. I have already talked about this one, that I use draw.io to build my architecture once, and I explain the same thing in each and every interview. Sometime even I shared my screen. I asked, like I took a permission from them that shall I share my screen and then talk about all the components, moving components that we have in architecture. Sometimes they said yes, sometimes they said no. They said just simply talk how your project architecture looks like, or how your ETL pipeline move the data from one location to another location, right? So if they ask you, it will help you, like it will help you to structure your thoughts also. It will help you to answer structurally, right? So generally I prefer this way. Then the next question, how have you designed and implemented Airflow microservices? So I talked about the backend that we had built, and we had built on Fast API, right? Because I know Python, so I had built it on Python, and yeah, I talked about this one. And then some of the internal details that I don't think I should explain here. Then the next question was, what all things you know about Kubernetes? So here like interviewer was very interested, and he has worked on Kubernetes in very great detail. So that is where he was asking about all the components you have used and how you have utilized. So those questions were asked. So I was talking about API server, etcd, of course not all, controller, scheduler, kubelet, pod, right? And also I think here it is not mentioned, config map, right? We use a lot. Then secret, and then how everything is managed or configured through YAML in Kubernetes. So those kind of discussions were happening here. And then the next question was CI/CD and orchestration. So basically how your code move from development to production environment. So that is where CI/CD comes into the picture. And orchestration, already I was talking about Airflow, right? So these are the two things. And for this one, CI/CD, we were using Azure DevOps. So I talked about how artifacts get created, and then how do we move our code, how is the pipeline is getting built, like CI/CD, basically continuous integration and continuous deployment pipeline, how those things are built around. Because mostly these are the part of DevOps, but we have to understand how things are working, how our code is moving from one environment to another, right? So this was the question. Next, it was tell me about your story. So I don't know, he asked me to explain my story. I just talked about, and here I am. You don't need to answer everything in star pattern, so you don't need to, just simply talk about your story. And then here also he asked me where do you see yourself in 5 years, or in career, what kind of growth you want. So I talked about, yeah, I want to grow personally, professionally, in each and every aspect, whichever I said, like I don't remember exactly, but yeah, I talked about some aspiration, that's it. And then the next round happened. In the last round, this was the fourth round, and this was the last round. Here again I was asked about end-to-end project architecture. This was not in great detail, but yes, he asked me to explain the same project again. And then the next question was, what are the biggest mistake you have done? So here I have recently shot this video, behavioral interview question and answer. So I have total uploaded 10 questions here, like I've talked about 10 questions here, and surprisingly all the questions were from this one only, and this is the same, right? So you can go there and just if you don't know answer, you can check it there. And then the next one, how does your team structure look like? So it depends on each person. So whichever team your is sorry, so however your team looks like, you can just talk about, like I have a manager, seniors, juniors, and how do you assign tasks from one person to another, and then how do you manage the stakeholders. So those kind of details he was talking about. And again then he asked me about what do you do on a daily basis. So how much time your goes in the stakeholder management, and then how much time do you develop, or do you develop completely, or you work with the design team also. So those kind of questions were asked here and discussed here, right? Then the next question was, how do you achieve a scalability in the pipeline? I don't remember exactly, but I think it was related to volume only, right? Data volume. So generally I talked about this one, Spark, where you I don't remember the term now, but yeah, you will have a minimum number of executor and maximum number of executor, which can increase or decrease. I don't know why can't I remember the term, but yeah, this kind of things I was talking about. And then I don't remember exactly. Yeah, I'll skip this one. So the next one, where do you go to find the issues in your pipeline whenever our pipeline fails? So how do you debug? Basically this was the question. And here first we go to, actually I have given in the wrong order. So first we go to log monitoring, then we go to orchestration tool. So from here to here, and then here to this one, and then this one. So order should be 2 1 3 4. I made a mistake here. So first log monitoring like superset UI, right? So we have a superset UI where we see the logs, our operations team see the logs, and not logs, status, and they will see, okay, success or failure. If success, if there is a failure, and failure is something like data was not available, so that is obvious that if data is not available, then what will be getting processed here. So those kind of questions are there. Then they will reach out to further downstream team, like our upstream team, whichever requires here. Then they will reach out to them, and then they'll talk about. If they cannot solve it, then they will reach out to us. And due to high temperature, my camera is again shut down, but I'll continue this video. So here a superset UI, and then they will check, and then we'll have to see in orchestration tool also you'll see logging, sorry, you will see the error in the task or DAGs, right? and that is where we can go further and check about the server logs, where we have two folders like std out and std error. So in std out you will see all the output, and std error will give you all the errors. And then last we go to the code fix, or run the entire code and understand where the issue is going on, because sometimes you even don't know where the issue is. So that is where you'll have to go and see the code and then fix it, right? So this is the flow that we generally follow. Then the next question was, why do you not automate the pipeline in case of failure? Why there is a manual intervention? So we had intentionally does that because we wanted to had a manual intervention like every day. In the morning 15 minutes was just blocked by the operations team to check if all the jobs are in success state. If that is not in success state, reach out to the particular developer or particular team. This was intentionally kept here because if something fails and if you don't get the mail or any outputs from there, then that can be a big trouble. So that is where SLA is there. And for us in production, we were dealing with financial data, so we had 4 hours of SLA. So if something goes wrong, we'll have to fix it, right? So this kind of reason were there. Of course, I know that email operator is one of the thing that we could have implemented and we didn't, but yes, of course, that is a kind of phase 2 implementation, we can say, that can be done right here. And again, what are the steps to required to automate it? So I said like email operator or something else that can be done here to automate and send the email to the respective team that your job got failed today, right? Then the next question was like, what happens if your supercritical pipeline fails on a weekend, and what is the SLA? So as I said earlier also, we had a SLA of 4 hours. So if something breaks on weekend, of course team has to come together and solve the issue no matter what. So these kind of things are of course there in the pipeline, and since we were dealing with financial data, so it was super critical data not to make mistake. Also if you are making mistake and if you are even there on leave, so there should be someone who can support on this project. So these kind of things are there, always there, if you are dealing with some financial data or production level data. So this was the thing we had. Now how does your deployment work? So again, I talked about CI/CD pipeline. This was the same question, I would say. And then how do you ensure that your pipeline is giving the correct result? So that is where we had two things. One was reconciliation, and another was inside the code itself, error handling and runtime checks. So runtime checks, like we had almost 2.3 million servers, right? Server cost data. So it should be 2.3 million. So basically, let's say I had 22,50,000 records. So if the start point had this many records, its end should also have this many records. So this was the case, and we were checking whenever we were making joins, especially with the dimension tables or master tables. So that is where we were using this one, because we didn't want to make any mistake or write any incorrect data. So this was one of the checks, and even after writing the data, reconciliation used to run, and that will check if your output is correct or not. So let's say cost, right? So sometime cost will show 0. All the record got processed, all the record had this many counts, but your cost is 0, or cost is 0 for one particular customer, right? So these kind of reconciliations are done after the data is written to the table. Then the next question is, why do you want to join PayPay? And you should always get prepared whenever you are giving interview for some organization. You should know why you want to join them. Even if you don't want to join them, know about them, what they works on, what all the things they have, and then go through their website, see some blog posts, see the area where they are working on, and see some clients they work with. So those kind of things always you should gather. How many people are there, where their offices are. So those kind of details you should keep it handy, right? And the next question was, why are you looking for a change? Again, I have given the answer here in the same video, so you can watch that. And I think that was it. So yeah, this was it. So now we will meet in the next video. Till then, bye bye.